Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, welcome to the SPM Tips webinar. The webinar will begin shortly at 9 p.m. So in the meantime, please go ahead and subscribe to Chumerlang Telegram at t.me/chumerlang.org. Thank you so much for attending. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the SPM Tips 101 webinar, a comprehensive guide by SPM top scorers. Diving into the heart of today's focus, we're aiming to provide students with valuable advice that can assist you in achieving better grades in SPM or any examination in general. And this directly correlates to Chumerlang's values. We are a launchpad for high achievers, and that means you. Our guest speakers for tonight consist of a panel of amazing high achievers themselves who have attained excellent results in SPM. They're all very disciplined, very passionate people who are definitely eager to share their tips and tricks with all of you. First up, we have Nur Hanani binti Shamsul Firdaus, a GPA scholar who is now studying at Taylor's College. She succeeded at getting 10 A+ for SPM while juggling her prefectorial duties as the head of Relations Committee and being active in orchestra and debate. Hi Hanani, how are you doing today?
Hi everyone. I hope that today's session is going to be very helpful for you guys, and looking forward to you guys.
Looking forward to hear you too, Hanani. Next, let's introduce Kadra binti Muhammad Azrul. She is currently studying at Taylor's College under a Petronas scholarship. Some things you should know about her is that she received 9A+, 1A for SPM, was the head girl of KYS, and has received the prestigious Queen's Guide Award all in 2020 alone. So, hi Kadra, anything you want to share with the audience tonight?
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for the sweet introduction. I'm really honored to be called with two of my amazing batchmates, and I really hope you guys learned something today from us, inshallah.
It's an honor to have you here too, Kadra. Thank you. Last but definitely not least, Harif Adam bin Khairul Amri. Harif is a JPA PPN scholar studying at College Yasan UEM. He successfully attained 10 A+ for SPM, was the deputy head boy of KYS, and also dabbled in STEM competitions as well as swimming. Harif, ready for tonight's webinar?
Hi, yes, I'm ready. Thank you for inviting me. So I hope that tonight's session will be very helpful for those attending. So listen to our tips, and I hope you guys can score your upcoming exams.
Thank you so much, Harif. We'll definitely listen and internalize all the advice you've given today. So thank you so much to all our guest speakers. Now that we've introduced all of them today, we can dive into the questionnaire session. But ladies and gentlemen, be sure to fully listen and internalize the entire talk, and also drop some questions in the Q&A box. Hopefully they will all be answered at the end of today's webinar. And without further ado, the first part of today's webinar is about general study tips. So, guest speakers, what are the must-haves you need to prepare before a good study session? For example, Hanani, do you need a detailed written schedule on what to study? Or are you more of the go with the flow and study based on your mood kind of person?
For me, I feel like schedules could be a bit suffocating, and like I personally don't follow like any rigid schedule because like it gives me some sort of like anxiety to have to follow everything in my schedule. So I just keep in mind what I have to do for the day and like not keep a rigid schedule. But that's like to me. And like what are the must-haves that I have to have before like a study session? For me, it's basically like music streaming websites and all that, so that I can like prepare for my like calculation subjects such as ad maths and accounting. So I think that like those are really like necessary to keep me like focused for like my calculation subjects. So like yeah, I think that's like a must-have for me. Yeah.
I think jamming out to music when you're doing calculation subjects is like a really good kind of tip. But what about, let's look at it from a different angle. Maybe Harif, do you agree with that or do you do something else?
Well, sometimes I do listen to music when I study, but then when I want to go 100% focus mode, I'll make sure to get myself into a very conducive area to study. So I'll try to avoid distractions such as other people and also phones. And also before I start my studying, I make sure to prepare all my necessary items such as my stationeries, my books, and also all the required stuff that I want to do throughout my study session so that I don't waste my time trying to get all this stuff while studying, and I can spend more time actually studying and learning.
You heard it. If you want to get in a 100% focus mode like Harif, be sure to prepare everything. So that also relates to the second question. It's more of like, how do you set time to study all subjects in a short period of time? Kadra, you look like you really want to say something, so go ahead and answer that question.
Thank you. So how I did it leading up to trials and SPM or like any exam in general is I would look at the exam schedule and see which subjects were coming first, and I would work backwards from there. So let's say I have BM first, right? So I would make sure I gave myself enough time before the BM exam to go through BM. So maybe like 2 days prior, and then I'd go English, and then I go, what would be next? Agama, is it? Or maths? I'm not too sure. It's up to you guys. But yeah, that's how I would structure it. And it would give me kind of a few rounds to go through everything if I were to plan a few weeks ahead. So it just helped me feel mentally prepared to take those papers. So yeah.
Well, that's really strategic, actually, really smart, really good structure. How about Hanani? Do you have anything to add on to that?
I think like a thing to add on is like if you have like a short period of time to like fully like study everything, like I think instead of passive reading and like rereading your textbooks all over again, I think that active recall would be like really helpful, like doing flashcards or like doing like repetitive MCQ questions. I think that's really helpful for me, like especially for fact-based like subjects such as agama and like sejarah. I think it's really important to like fully equip yourself to know what you're actually doing during the exam. So like for me, I did repetitive MCQ questions, I did repetitive essay questions, and like yeah, I did that instead of like just reading through the textbook, because like I know it's the input is not going to be as much as when you do active recall. So yeah, that's from my experience. Yep.
That actually makes so much sense. It's definitely better than, like memorizing a whole chunk of text, especially for like fact heavy subjects. How about another question? Studying solo versus studying in groups. I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, should I study alone? Should I study in groups? So, which do you prefer? And how can you optimize learning in that kind of style? So, anyone have any preferences? Maybe
Okay,
Pedra.
I'll answer this one first then. So personally, I talk a lot with people around me. So I cannot study in a group for the most part. I try to study myself because I know that I will end up making too much conversation with the people around me. And I think my friends can attest to that. So I like to study alone. But leading up to the exam, once I've already gotten my own session in, it's kind of nice to do it with other people because you know that you're not missing out on certain things and you can just kind of learn based off each other. So initially I will do stuff myself, but getting closer to the exam, I do like to study with other people. So I guess to maximize studying alone first is to not have distractions, because the main reason I'm doing it alone is I'm trying to get away from distractions. So my phone is a huge distraction for me, and I am totally guilty of, maybe doing one piece of work and then spending the next 15 minutes on TikTok. So I am very guilty of that. So I have to make sure that I put my phone away pretty far from me, or I use this app called, what's it called? Forest, I think. It's like it plants a tree in your phone. And then if you touch your phone, the tree dies. So if you don't want to kill a tree in your phone, you have to make sure you don't touch it for a certain amount of time. So yeah, stuff like that is what helps me maximize solo studying.
That's such a cute idea to use such a cute forest app to like study. That's quite cool. And since we know that Kadra's also super talkative and likes to have study buddies close to exams, but I think we're all also curious. What about, Harif? What about you?
I do a mix of both, studying solo and as well in a group, because there are advantages and disadvantages for each type of studying method. Well, anytime that I feel less motivated to study, I try myself to study together with other people. Because when you look at your friends studying hard, you feel, wow, I need to study as well. So indirectly, you are motivated to study together with your friends. And also, when you study with your friends, you can ask them if you get stuck in a question, such as in maths. You can ask your friend, how do I solve this question? And then they can help you and guide you. So that's an advantage of studying in a group. But then when you study alone, I feel like you will minimize distractions because you are less likely to talk to other people. And for me, reading these subjects such as history and also agama Islam, it's best for you to study alone because you can concentrate more when you read.
That's cool, Harif. So looks like there's actually pros and cons of both studying alone and studying in groups, right? So actually, what about you, Harani? Do you want to chip in with your preference as well?
For me personally, I'm like a more introverted person, so I really prefer studying alone, especially like during like especially like fact-based, like basically every subject, like I prefer to study alone. But then like leading up to the exam, I still like remember studying with Kadra for agama. So like that has been really helpful, especially like recalling everything and like testing each other out. I think that's really helpful, especially for fact-based like subjects. But like if you're someone introverted and like don't you know are not comfortable with studying in groups or like doing discussions, I think it's best to like stick to studying alone. Yeah, so that's for me. Yeah.
Cool. That's actually really relatable. I think some of us where it doesn't really matter if we're like, introverts or extroverts, there are like so many ways that we can study, whether alone or with other people. So I think that within the first part of today's webinar, I think that Harif, Kadra, and Hanani, you also talked a lot about general study tips as well, which is the second part of today's webinar, actually. So we can go ahead and start with the first question for practical study tips. How do you study subjects which include heavy memorization? All those killer subjects like biology and history. Any secret shortcuts, or is it kind of inevitable to have to memorize the whole textbook?
Maybe the bio student can answer that one first.
Okay, let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah, since I'm the only bio student like here, I remember that I think you guys took like sub science. Yeah, I'm the only one who took biology here.
Yeah.
So like basically for biology, it's a very fact-based like subject and it's very heavy and all. And I think like most of the people can relate to that. But for me, instead of like memorizing facts, I understand them because biology is mostly about your body and about your environment. So like if biology consists of like mostly about your body anatomy and your like the plants and like animals and all that. So like I took that and like applied it in real life. So I look at like trees and then I know how it, how the internals look like. So like yeah, I apply biology in real life and like, stuff like that. So instead of memorizing the entire textbook, which is like impossible to do because like there's like 300 pages plus of like information to gather inside your brain, I suggest like understanding it and like fully comprehending the content that you're learning about. Yeah.
Wow, that's such an interesting approach to learning biology. But what about, other subjects? Maybe we can ask a sub science student this time about, your subjects in particular, the ones that are like really killer, have like a lot of things to like memorize. So how do you approach that?
For subjects like history, I I tried this one method, which is storytelling. So when you read the facts or events that happen in the history, so what I do is I try to make it into one story, and then I talk it out loud. So when you repeat and repeat and repeat, it's somehow I'm able to remember more compared to just reading. So in a way, storytelling actually helps, and I'm able to remember more facts compared to just normal reading that is quite inefficient. Yeah.
I've never heard of that before, but it sounds amazing. I'm gonna definitely try it out. I bet the audience is definitely gonna try that out too. So we have biology here, we have history there. Any other subjects? Maybe Kadra, you want to talk about how you approach those kind of subjects?
Honestly, when you have, I agree with what Harith said about storytelling. I love to listen to my friends kind of retell the textbook because it sticks in my head so much better and it's so much more fun to recall later on. But what's really important as well is getting names right and dates right, because if you remember just the story and you kind of have those little missing details, it's actually harder to recall. So to help me with little details like that, answering the multiple choice questions is really crucial for me, because there's always going to be something you miss in that textbook or in class or something like that. So if you're able to catch it before the actual exam and find that you don't know a specific fact or a specific name, or you can't differentiate between two different events or something like that, you're able to catch yourself if you practice first. So that's how I kind of tackle memorizing subjects.
I see. So it looks like it's both really, really important. Like what Harif said, it's to like remember the entire like flow of the story. But as Kadra said, it's also important to, look at the minor details, the little details, because that's what's really going to help you a lot in exams. So thank you so much. That was actually a really good way, a really good approach to studying heavy memorization subjects. So enough about memorizing stuff. Let's talk about this. So how like at maths is one of the most feared SPM subjects for many students. So yeah, how do you tackle mathematical problems? Have you ever gotten stuck with a difficult topic or question, and how do you overcome that? Maybe Hanani?
Okay. So like one thing to know, I was never perfect at maths. I used to get B's, C's from the start of like my Form 4 years. And like it's okay to start like from the bottom and work your way up. Like I think that's a really important thing to note. And for like at maths, I think the basic level of like your understanding about that topic, like difficult topics such as like integration, differentiation, and like stats and all that, I think most people are like intimidated by those like topics. And like they take that intimidation and like, like take that intimidation and then like make it so that like, and like, yeah, they're scared about this subject. So it reflects back onto your grades or something. So like for me, I work my way on my basics and like my understanding of like the formula of the topic, and then like do simple questions first, and then work your way into like those essay questions, those long essay questions. Yeah. So I think that's my approach. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite inspiring actually to see how you start from the bottom and like you raise to the top and to the point where you got 10 A plus, which means you got A plus for MS. Like, wow, amazing. Good job. But anyways, another like anyone else want to answer that as well, like a different way of tackling these kind of mathematical problems, because everyone's different, right? Maybe Harry, you want to try that?
Well, I think it's just the cliche. Mathematical subjects, the only way for you to score is to practice, practice, and practice. So what I did preparing for SPM at Maths is I tried to do as many questions as possible, because when you do different sets of questions, there are various different types of ways that they can ask you regarding a certain topic. So when you are exposed to more and more different ways that they ask regarding each topic, then you are able to answer any type of questions that may come out in the exam later on. So yeah, just practice and practice and practice.
Practice and practice and practice. Wow, that's a good quote. So, dear audience, you should definitely take note of that. Practice and practice and practice, because it always makes perfect. What about Kadra? Do you struggle with maths too, or how do you approach it?
My approach to maths was really, really know your basics and make sure your fundamentals are very strong. And that was something my maths teacher always said. Chiwabu always say that your basics have to be very strong, because when you're in doubt, you have to go back to like, what did I learn actually? And what was the basic thing I learned? Because the question is always going to be based around what you learned, right? So they're not trying to kill you. Obviously, there were many killer questions I've come across, but trying to really understand and identify what they were actually asking, So if you see a very complicated question, try to break it down to its fundamentals and see what can I apply in this question. And usually, I think in harder questions, they would kind of mix a few topics together, almost like one part of a question is asking this and you have to use a certain method, and another part of a question was something else. So really break it down and try to see, okay, what can I do? Always ask yourself, what can you do in a question? Because I remember that even if you didn't really know how to finish it, if you could start it, hopefully there's marks there. So yeah, don't give up on those types of questions. And again, you have your friends and your teachers that you can ask for different perspectives on how to look at that question.
Yeah, and like I think I have something to add. So much as for me, I didn't really do I didn't do practices every single day, because like if as long as I know my basics and my like fundamental like formulas and all that, like I think it's good to go, because like I am the person that generally hates to like spend my time on stuff I already know. And like I think I focus on stuff that I'm not like questions that like are like rare in like a way. So like those questions very long and very complicated, I tend to like target those, and then like lessen my time on like basic like questions that are like so I think that's one thing.
Make sure you guys can answer the basic questions first though. Like you don't want to be focusing too much on those, right? Because then you'll like weaken that. Yeah, but I agree with Hanani that you have to identify which part you're struggling in most.
Yeah,
looks like we have like two type of people here. One who says that like basics is really important, and one who also likes to like look at the complicated stuff. So I think that a good mixture of both is like really important, but it also depends on the person. So thank you so much, Kadra. Like basics are so important. Thank you so much for drawing attention to that, and thank you so much, Hanani, because like just because you know the basics doesn't mean you can answer like the long complicated ones. And you know in maths we have a lot of those. What about Harif? Do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I kind of agree with Kadra. It's just the way you look at the question, and then later on you can break it down into the basics that you've learned. So when you can't answer, if you find it difficult to answer one question in AdMaths, it's best for you to recall back what is the question about, what topic does it relate to. So if I find it difficult to answer, so I list down the related formulas and the formulas related to the topic that the question is trying to ask me about. So from there, I can identify and figure out what formula that I can use, how should I look at this question, and in the end I can find the answer. So I believe that if everyone follows that method too, then you can in a way try to answer the very difficult questions in that maths. Yeah.
That's so cool. I don't. That's a pretty unique and strategic way of like you know studying at maths. So that's really cool. Thanks, Harif. So enough about calculations and maths. Let's talk about the real stuff. What are some rituals you can do the week of examinations, the night before the exam, and the day of the test? So anyone up for this one?
So it was the week, the day. You're gonna have to
Day
get back to
before.
me. It was the week, the day, few, okay, something like that. On the day itself, too, right? Okay, we got the question. Okay. So
Yeah.
if it was, I think a week before SPM, everyone was pretty serious. But after they were done studying, they would try to release as much of the tension from studying as possible. I remember that. But people were very serious during that part. So I think a week before is time for you to kind of sit down with yourself and be like, okay, it's happening. You're taking an exam soon, and doing what you can in that moment. So, just remember that a lot of the thing has it's your fate already, but you can still work like towards making sure it's the best that you can do. Like there's always time. Even though like maybe people will tell you that a week is not enough time to do anything, like it's enough time to mentally prepare yourself, honestly, because if you've done what you could, you can't really regret the outcome. So in that week before, it was a lot of you've done your best and what you could. So now what can I do? And maybe like for me, it was like I would have to recall a few little facts before the exam. So that week before was like me trying to make sure that I got the full picture of my subjects and I kind of knew what was going to happen, went through the format again, just to like really make myself feel confident. The day before, make sure you prepare your stuff, everything, your uniform is ready, your bag is packed, and like you have like a stationery, maybe whatever notes you plan to bring to when you're waiting for your exam, make sure you have all that settled so you can go to sleep just feeling like, yes, I'm ready for tomorrow. Like I've got everything. So that's a very nice feeling, to have before. And the day of is just like really try to keep yourself calm, try to wake up early, even if you're not that much of a morning person. Like I'm not that great at waking up in the morning, but during SPM, I woke up early. And it's just nice to have that quiet time before the paper, before the kind of internal madness, right? So yeah, I would recommend setting that time for yourself.
That's a lot to unpack there. A lot of good advice, actually. Being serious, the week before SPM, mentally prepare and also, physically prepare for everything. That's really, really important. So, Hanani or Harif, what do you guys do? Do you have the same sort of ritual or is it different?
The week before the exam or the week before SPM, mostly it was just me stressing out, thinking that what if I did something wrong during the paper. So I always thought, it's always in my mind that very freaky thought of messing up your exam. So it's important for you to relax and calm yourself down before the exam. Just make sure you know that, and make sure you think and remember it's just another exam. You've done so many exams in your life. It's just another exam. Although it's important, but then it's not like you have never done an exam before. So it's important for you to relax, calm yourself down, and also calm yourself down spiritually. Make a lot of dua for the Muslims, and it helps. It helps for you to calm down. For the night before the exam, Just like Kadra, I make sure I prepare everything, the uniform, the stationaries, all the other books and stuff. And also before I sleep, before I close my eyes, I often visualize what am I going to look, how am I going to feel during the exam the next day, the next morning. So in a way, I won't be surprised in the exam hall later on. So just I visualize, and it's a way for you to prepare yourself for the next day. For the morning before the paper, it's important for you to wake up early. That's a fact. And not to forget, don't miss your breakfast before the exam. And just unlike other people, they often cram or read the notes right before the exam, but I don't find it very effective. I've tried it before and I don't think anything came in. So my approach is just to talk to other people about the subject and just exchange, like you test each other out verbally. So in a way, you just recall just this few bits that may come in the exam. So that might help. And also another important thing is to always be cheerful before the paper. This is an advice that Miss Light once told me. It's important for you to smile and laugh around with your friends before the exam in a way that could make you calm down. Yeah.
Thanks, Arif. Hopefully, everyone's going to be cheery during SPM. We don't want that doom and gloom. But also, wanted to draw attention on one of the things you also talked about was like visualization, right? I think that's so powerful how you talked about that because honestly, it's really good to, visualize things before it happens because it fully mentally prepares you for stuff. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing. So I think that from this entire section, for this part two section about practical study tips, right? You guys have actually talked a lot about mental health mostly, especially with that third question. You guys talked about like, physically and mentally preparing. So like, I think we can enter the third phase of today's webinar, which is about mental health. So first question is, it's really interesting. How do you cope with stress during examinations?
Well, SPM is a very long period. It's around 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So you don't want to stress yourself out for the whole 4 weeks. So just allow yourself to relax, do things that you do things that you like, do things that make you feel happy and fun things, such as watch Netflix, or you can go to sports with your friends, or maybe just get enough sleep or sleep during the evenings. That is very important for you to avoid the unnecessary stress of exams. Yeah, that's my approach.
That sounds great. Honestly, it's definitely gonna be helpful if we don't want to be stressful. But Hadani, you also look super amused by this question. So do you wanna answer it? Like chip in?
I think like because I was always surrounded by people who study like possibly like 24/7, and like I think it's really important to not compare yourself with others because like it can make yourself feel stressful and like feel like make yourself think that am I not doing enough, or like why am I not doing this when others are doing that. So that would add like unnecessary stress to you onto yourself and make yourself more panicked and all that. So it's really important to make yourself not feel guilty for going at your own pace. And yeah, don't make yourself feel bad for doing the things that you're doing right now, because like everybody has their own coping mechanisms and like their own pace in going through about this whole journey. So like yeah, that's from what I think. Yeah.
So relatable, honestly. I think it's like easy to compare yourself to others, especially during exam seasons. So Kadra, do you feel that? Like, have you ever felt this also?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because yeah, especially when you're in a boarding school, you're like 24/7 with these other students, right? And you're just always seeing someone's walking out of their room to study or something like that. And I guess sometimes it can feel a bit like, oh, like maybe I should be studying, but it's very important to, yeah, go at your own pace, honestly. And, it's like someone else's success and effort won't take away from your own. So even if you do see someone else studying and you're not, that doesn't mean anything about you. It's like that's them and that's what they're doing for themselves. So you really can't compare that. If you look at it that way, it's kind of, it helps with if you're feeling peer pressure about that in any way. And it's totally understandable to feel that way. But just remember that, you're your own person and you've got your own progress and your own pace. And as long as you're doing what you need to do for yourself, it's really like that should be the best you can do. Yeah.
Totally agree with what you say, Kadra. I think it's definitely more important to like focus on our own goals rather than like trying to complete the goals of other people. Definitely. So, second question, moving on, right? To you, what should the mindset of a SPM candidate be like? Like I can already see from all three speakers tonight, you guys are so wow, you guys are disciplined. You guys know your stuff. So like, but then specifically, right, what's the mindset of like what we should have while examinations? Are there any inspirational things you like to say to help nurture students to become top scorers like you? Honey, maybe just give it a go.
I think one thing to keep in mind all the time is that SPM is not the end of your journey, and it's not the end of the journey. So like even if you did reach your goal or everything, like there's still a second chance in life, and you don't have to beat yourself to it. So this was like a constant fear for me throughout SPM, because like I was pressured to get straight A plus. I pressured myself. I was pressured by my surroundings, and like that really put me in a really deep hole of like self pressure and all that. So I think it's important to like let loose and like calm yourself down, and then like let yourself loose basically. So don't fall into that pressure too much, because it's gonna stress yourself out and like put yourself more down than like ever. So like yeah, that's one thing from my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And is it okay if I kind of add on to that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So a thing that you should keep in mind during any exam is that after you're done, you're done. So don't kind of go back and think about it. Like if you think you did something wrong, like it's okay. It's past already. The thing that you need to focus on is what's coming up next, because that's what you have control over. And that was something, after a paper, sometimes I would like text my parents and be like, I don't know about that one. But then the thing they tell me is that it's okay. Tell us first, just say what you want, but you have to move on after that. And that was very helpful to just kind of get myself back on track and be like, yeah, it's already passed, but what can I do now? That's the thing that's most important in an exam, is like, you still got other things to worry about afterwards. So once it's done, just know that you've put in the effort there and you can leave it behind after that. And now you move on to the next thing. It's always moving on to the next thing with very long examinations like this, because it can be very taxing on you if you keep thinking about the past papers, because then you won't be able to give your all for the next. So that is something that I would definitely recommend to keep in mind throughout SPM or any long exam, any exam. Yeah.
That's a really good recommendation though. So I can see that like basically you have like a support system, right? To like make sure you don't, get into that hole of, oh, I'm not gonna do this, I can't do this. Yeah. So Harif, do you have a support system, or is it like, are you more of the independent type who like, you have to fix your own mindset kind of person?
Well, I think everybody has their own support system. For me, it's my parents, because sometimes I stress myself so much, not during the exam, but before the exams. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not going to score the trials. I'm not going to score SPM. Sometimes I find myself very emotional over this kind of stuff. So what I do is I call my father or I call my mother, talk about all the stress that I'm currently experiencing. So it's good if you're experiencing stress before the exams or after the exams. It's important for you to let it out. Talk to people that you can trust. Talk to people that will support you. Not only your parents, maybe your friends, they can understand you as well. So that's a way for you to, uh, you know, calm yourself down and move on for the next upcoming paper or journey that you're going to go through. But then before the exam, I think it's best for you to fix onto yourself your end goal. What do you want to achieve from SPM? Set yourself a specific target, whether you want straight A plus, whether you want straight A's. Make sure you aim higher than what you can achieve, because when you aim higher, you're motivated to do better than what you can actually do. So for example, if you want straight A's, maybe aim for straight A plus. So in a way, you work harder than what you are. How do I word this? You can work harder to gain your goal. Yeah. So it's important for you to set a target before you go through your SPM.
What's that saying? That's like reach for the moon, land amongst the stars, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, that's really true. Honestly, it's really good to set high targets for yourself, because at the very least, at the end, you'll land amongst the stars, like Pedra said. It's a really cute quote, and it's a really empowering sort of mindset to have. So I hope the audience will be able to jot that down. Also, another question, right? Do you guys know about burnout? Like, do you know what burnout is? Yeah. Okay. So do you have any tips on how to avoid that? Because I know a lot of my friends probably, and basically students in general, we face burnout a lot, especially since for our generation, our batch, Form fives, or actually like the entire Malaysia right now, we are having online classes, and it's so easy to have burnout, right? So what are you guys tips to avoid that, or heal yourself from burnout?
Well, I think everyone will experience burnout at some point. So just like I said before, it's important for you to calm yourself down and unwind by doing things that you enjoy, doing things that make you feel happy, and doing things that are fun. Like I said before, watch Netflix or play sports. So that's a way for you to uh, counter the effects of burnout. So in a way, after you've done something very exciting, you will lift up your mood. You'll feel more motivated to study. So then you can overcome burnout. Yeah.
I think I have something to add on that. I think
Sure.
spacing out your study hours is really important, because if you spend like around 5 to 6 hours straight just studying, I think that's like a leading cause of burnout. So it's really important to like space out. Like I think like a tip, like a ratio tip to like study is like study for like 30 minutes and like rest for 10 minutes. Like if there's like this ratio online that you can follow, and like it's kind of like really effective to make sure that like all the studying and info that you're gaining at that time is like fully equipped inside your brain instead of like long hours of studying. I think that's really inefficient to me. So like yeah, that's one like tip to avoid burnout, is to have space, like to rest and like let loose and step back a little bit. So yeah, that's one thing.
Honey, so that ratio thing, right? That ratio technique, that's actually Pomodoro, right?
I think so, but like yeah, I try to implement that, like that 2 to 1 ratio. I think it's really helpful if to avoid a burnout. Yeah, yeah.
That's definitely cool. It's really important to set an equal amount of time to rest and study. So I guess that's it for the question actually. So wow, there has been actually so much valuable information that has been shared with us today. So thank you so much, Hanani, Kadra, and Harif. Like wow, your trips and tricks with us, students will like really benefit us, because we definitely need it for our examinations in our future. And I bet that there are so many students who are actually really excited to ask you questions here. Like you can see the Q&A box. There's actually a few questions here. Let's try. Oh, we have one question from an anonymous attendee. What method do you use individually to remember formulas for like chemistry, physics, and maths? Anyone can help with that?
Extract them from the book, because when you can see all of them, it's so much easier for you to be able to memorize them. So I mean, at maths they do provide a formula sheet, but I think for a chapter like statistics specifically, I did make a kind of mind map. Sounds kind of funny when you say it out loud. It's like made a mind map for admats, but it helps a lot because statistics specifically, it was like a lot of cabang to go through, right? And like you could get the formulas mixed up if you didn't really know what they were. So yeah, extracting them from the book so you can see them all in one place, extremely helpful. But make sure you understand the use of those formulas and you understand the formulas before you do that. But extracting them to see them all together is very helpful.
I think that's really, really helpful. Yeah,
I think I have to add on. Yeah, I think like because there's so many formulas and like so many things to remember, I think like remembering the components and like what they actually do in the entire formula, I think that's really helpful in truly understanding instead of just like memorizing which formula is for which topic. I think it's most important to like understand the components in the formula itself and like understanding why we use that formula. So like, yeah, that's what, yeah.
Cool. I think those are like really effective ways to memorize formulas, extracting them and all. Thank you so much. But another question from another anonymous attendee. They said, "Hi, I feel as though I might need to start from the bottom or zero for all SPM subjects. So do you think there's enough time? And is there any tips to study efficiently?" Yeah, that's.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, your SPM is in March, right? So that's
Yeah.
around 6 more months, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is a lot of time for you to prepare actually from the bottom. I've known a few people who started slightly later than other people, started studying later than other people and managed to score well in their SPM. But it's not applicable to everyone. This studying very late. So I hope you can start slowly by identifying your weak subjects. So you should try to focus more on subjects or subtopics in a certain subject that you find weak, and you allocate more time trying to improve on your weaker subjects. So in a way, when you want to do a study session or you want to allocate time studying for each subject, allocate more time for the ones that you find you are weaker at. Just look through your past exam papers, past exam marks, or in-class assessments, and then you can evaluate from there which subjects should I pay more attention to. So that way you can actually start studying effectively for all subjects in around 5 months. Yeah.
Yeah, prioritization is key in like crucial times like this. But also if you do feel like you genuinely, I don't know where to start, you have to find the time now during your day. That maybe you do have to sacrifice a bit of time if you feel like there's a lot that you need to cover. But you just really, what Harry said, you just really need to know what the problem is you're facing, and then you can tackle it accordingly.
On that note, okay, Kadra, actually curious though. When did all of you start, studying like seriously? Yeah.
Okay, honestly, this may sound like, I don't know if it's the answer people want to hear, but I listened in class. So honestly, I tried to really understand what was going on in class, and I was the type to ask questions if I didn't understand. So that sounds like very maybe like goody two shoes to some people, but in the end, in the long run, it helped me a bunch because even if I was feeling stressed, at least I knew I had gone through it before. So, I did really try to understand what my teachers are telling me. And, if you're struggling with what your teachers are sharing with you, you have to really be honest with yourself and be like, yeah, I don't understand this. And that was when I would try to look for more help, whether it be from my friends or I go straight to the teacher and ask so many questions, or, sign up for maybe workshops or something. So for me in Form 4, I struggled a lot with understanding physics, and it seemed like everyone else could just easily understand it, but I just could not seem to get it. I just couldn't picture it. So I joined a workshop type thing, a tuition workshop, and it kind of gave me the big picture of SPM physics, so I can see everything, and it just made so much more sense. And even though I did try my best in class, I still struggled. So don't be afraid to ask for more help than you like than other people are asking for, because it's not a big deal. Like if it helps you, it helps you, right? So
Honestly, it's so comforting how, like each and every one of you, even though you guys are like so amazing, you've achieved such like amazing results, it's also quite comforting to know that you guys also ask for help from other people. Like I think like a lot of people, they underestimate the power of asking for help. So thank you so much for drawing attention to that. That's super cool. Another question, this time from Leka Varshini. She's asking, how do you find time to do what plan, including studying, homework, coping with stress, and on top of that, having to sleep? Like, how do you pack all of that into your schedule? Hanani?
I think I divided my time. So for school, it ends at like around 2 to 3, like that, right? So I think I focus all that time into like class and like betul-betul like focus on like the content and like what I'm studying, so that I know that I have time for myself later, you know. So if I slack off during classes and like during school, I know that I'm gonna spend my free time studying and like backing up all the stuff that I missed out during school. So I think that's quite important to like, divide your time properly. So during prep, I think it's important to like spend that time doing your homework, and then like post prep, if you have like any like extra studying that you have to do, and like you're weak in that topic, I think that's the time to like spend on. Yeah. So like prep is for homework, and like for school it's all about like the content and like and all that. And like in between, it's all about yourself. So sports, or like watching your K dramas, or like playing your games. So like yeah.
That's really organized. That's really cool.
can I just clarify one thing before though? One thing I want to clarify is that I was not able to keep this up for like the whole period of Form 4 to Form 5. I had my periods of I cannot focus in class at all. I don't understand anything that's going on, especially during online. Like that was a really tough time, and like my prayers are with all of you, seriously. But like yeah, I just want to tell you that I was not perfect at all like throughout the whole thing. I had my moments of like really good, like yeah, I get everything right now. But that there were definitely those moments where I was like, I don't know what's going on. And you kind of see yourself having to put more time into that. But that's when you have to be honest with yourself, and it's like, yeah, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And you have to put in the extra time. So I definitely felt the consequences of my actions. So if you're able to like really try to understand the things in class, so you can save that time after.
Katra, so like whenever you're in like a slump, right? You said you weren't perfect, so you like sometimes don't have that like productive kind of period. So how do you bump back into the productive kind of focus?
All right. So for me, I noticed that I would experience more slumps and more burnouts if I were to push myself a bit too hard at one time, or like in a really short amount of time. So I noticed that I just kind of fare better if I were to space out my stuff. So yeah, once I was in a slump, and sometimes it takes me weeks to recover, but do what you need to do. So for me, it was, maybe not touching a book for like a whole day or something. It's like, I can't do this right now. And that's okay. I think if you're in a slump and you really don't want to study, maybe the thing, like for me, the thing that kind of makes you feel like I'm studying is the book. So, if I'm around somebody and they're telling me things, I'm just listening and absorbing, that can kind of help you if you feel like your slump is too long, but you're like, I really need to study now. Like, I need to. Then maybe listening to somebody talk, or just like, hearing somebody talk about something, or watching a video, something that's more appealing to you, that can help you slowly get out of that slump. That's definitely what helped for me, because it kind of slowly prepares yourself for looking at a book again. So yeah.
This stuff is so helpful though. Like I think it's better than forcing yourself to like, oh, come on, do it. It's like basically interactive material, right, Kadra?
Yeah, it's so much more interesting, especially if it's like doing Kahoots by yourself or doing quizzes. I love doing quizzes. Even if I get the questions wrong, it's like, I mean, I learned something. So that counts as studying today, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. We'll keep that in mind, hopefully. All right, that's the end of that question. Let's go on to Khairunisa binti Ahmad. She's asking how to improve speaking English. Quite an important question. Harry, if you want to answer that?
Well, I'm not really a very fluent English speaker compared to the likes of Kadra and Hanani. But then I think more practice, if you practice a lot, if you practice speaking a lot with your friends, you consume more English media, then in a way you can develop your fluency in the language. So just practice speaking. Although you are making grammatical mistakes, don't be afraid. Just keep on talking and talking and talking. So if you have the right people you're talking to with, I'm pretty sure they won't mind the occasional or some your errors, your grammatical errors that you say out when you're talking in English. Yeah.
Those are really good advice, Harif. I think that's gonna help a lot, especially like to people who aren't like, English isn't their mother tongue or like their first language. That's really, really helpful. So next question. Is it good to study at late night? I think it definitely differs for everyone. So what do you guys think?
For me, I'm personally a night owl, so I would stay up rather than like wake up early and like yeah, I'm not that general person who like wakes up at 4 and studies until 6 and then goes to class. I'm not really that type of person. Rather I would just stay up until like 1 or 2 to study. But like it really depends. And like as long as your studying session is effective and like you're gaining something from that study session, even though it's late at night, I think it's good. I think it's like, yeah, it really depends on the person, whether you're a night owl or you're like a morning person. So like, yeah, I don't say that it's bad, but try to get as like try to when you're studying up late, know that you have to manage your sleep schedule, because sleep is very important, especially during like stressful times. I think like it's important to balance, like there are days where you sleep early and there are days where you want to focus and like stay up late. So like it's not really healthy to stay up late every night. Yeah, know your balance. Yeah, that's from what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Any and since we know that Harani is a night owl, right? What do you call the morning robin? Morning bird?
I
Early
was
bird?
gonna say bird. Is it early bird?
Early bird. Yeah.
Early bird. Yeah, early bird.
I was gonna say worm, and I was like, no, the early bird gets the worm. It's not an early worm.
Well, occasionally I am an early bird because I'm roommates with a friend. His name is Daniel Haziq. So he would often wake up early at 4:30 or 5. So I would tell him, hey Daniel, can you wake me up tomorrow morning? So I would study together with him because I don't really like staying up really late. I don't think I'm able to absorb whatever I'm reading or whatever I'm learning in the late night. So it's okay for you to wake up early. And if I usually wake up early, I would often do like math-based subjects because reading is very difficult early morning. Yeah.
That's so cool. Honestly, manifesting a friend who can wake up in the morning with me, even though I don't wake up easily in the morning. Okay. Next question. This is quite interesting. So it's quite general. An anonymous attendee asked, what are some things you wish you knew or did before SPM?
I would like to answer that question.
Go ahead.
It's you must be ready to expect the unexpected. Yeah. So this happened to us during our econs paper. So econs paper was our last paper. So econs was a relatively new. It presented a new syllabus. So there was like only two batches before who did the SPM econs in the new syllabus. So we didn't really have much reference on how the type of questions might be. So when the econs exam came, the whole question paper was so different with the other exam papers that we've done before. different with the trials paper, different from the past year paper. So basically, it was a whole new different way of a whole new different perspective of econs exam. So yeah, that's my advice. Be prepared to expect the unexpected.
Wow, that actually sounds really scary, but good on you guys for, facing that head on. I can't imagine. Katra, you also took econs, is it?
I did take econs, but and
Ooh.
actually this does relate to econs. Okay, the thing is, seniors warned us about last paper syndrome, but I did not realize how serious last paper syndrome was, especially our year because it was a 2 week gap between admats and econs. So I mean, it's okay to take like a couple days to like relax, right? I did not just take a couple days, guys. I took way more than that. I was I took a lot of time to just relax. But I won't say that I regret it because I know that like I did still try my best. So it's just not like my rezeki if I didn't get a specific grade. And I'm totally okay with that. But just keep in mind that you still got a paper coming up. So it's good to just like, even if it's not a really serious study session, to just go through it a little bit at a time. But I wouldn't say that I was unprepared for the exam or anything. I still went in with knowledge and like knowing what was gonna happen. But last paper syndrome is real, guys. Just a warning, I guess. Be careful, but also it's not the end of the world, lah.
Definitely, definitely real. I hope that the audience, the students here, you guys won't make that mistake. Last paper syndrome can be very, very fatal. So another question is, during the few weeks before the exams, do you completely purge social media or Netflix or any distractions? Or like does that make you more stressed? I think Hanani talked about, K-drama before. Do you watch, like do you stop 100% during?
Actually, okay. There's a lot of like sources of distraction, like TikTok, Instagram, and all that. Personally, I couldn't purge myself of all of that. So I just purged myself from TikTok and Instagram, those two only, because I realized that those are the two main apps that took my screen time to a whole new level. So like, yeah, I purged myself and I tried to like, abstain myself from using those apps. And as for like K-dramas and like sources of entertainment, I don't see anything wrong with like, it's yeah, as long you can't, I mean, like, don't make yourself feel guilty for, consuming the things that you like. And personally, during like trials, in the middle of trials, I spent my day like binge watching like this one K-drama and like crying my eyes out. So like, yeah, I think it's important to use those sources of entertainment as like a release, like sort of to release your stress instead of like making them as like a distraction. So yeah, that's one thing to know. Yeah, that's from my experience lah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Hanani. Don't take away the things you love so dearly. Like you really don't have to sacrifice too much for this. So don't make yourself miserable. But I do know a lot of people who can say that cutting out Instagram really helped them. I personally didn't do that. I feel like it would have been a good thing because it was a source of my distraction. But I enjoyed using it, so I didn't really want to get rid of it, and that's totally fine too. Like it's really up to you. And if you think that getting rid of it is going to help you, then you can go ahead and do that. But personally for me, it wasn't something that I was like, I'm going to get rid of my Instagram. It was just like I enjoyed having it there, and it wasn't like too bad like to me to have it on. So really like look at yourself in this situation. So I consumed a lot of media before SPM, so it's doable. It's very doable.
Very doable. Hopefully, like I don't think I would purge completely, but I also agree with Hanani. It's important to look at, what you're most drawn to, what you spend the most time on, because those are like the killer sort of apps. So TikTok, Instagram, if it's too much, it's too much. So another question is, I am super struggling in ANMATs. What should I do in recalling them as I live in I'm struggling in ANMATs basically. That's the question. So I think we already covered this just now, but do you have like any like super in-depth tips? Like especially for topics you struggle with a lot.
I think if your like concern and your weakness is targeted in like specific topics, I think it's important to do topical questions and like focus yourself on that, and then like make yourself do the entire like sample questions. So like yeah, make yourself focused on those like weak spots, and then do the big picture. I think that's really important for me. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a really good advice for AdMat specifically. I think a lot of people struggle with that, so that's pretty cool advice. Another question that's popping up a lot in the Q&A box actually is, do you make notes in last minute before exam, or do you just do like a lot of trial papers?
My approach to trial exams is a mix of both notes and also past papers. So when you write down notes, I usually do it for memorizing subjects such as history and also agama. So you don't have to write down the whole book, the whole content of the book. You just write down important points, important facts that you need to remember in a small sheet of paper, and then something that is readable and very easy to digest. So that in a way can help you to memorize and remember facts. Also, you can also do what do they call flashcards. So flashcards through active recall, you can actually also help you to remember and memorize facts. And for past papers and set of trial papers, if I don't have the time for me to do it on paper, I would just glance through it, read the questions, and try to answer it verbally. And then I would check the answer sheet at the back just to compare my answers with the correct answers. So in that way, you can actually save time while studying. It may be effective to some and maybe not. So you should try and experiment yourself. Yeah.
Hopefully, I think it's quite effective for most people. It's a really good advice, actually. So I hope the audience can take that down. But any other approach to it though, like any other method, like I know that Harif, you talked about being pro flashcard and pro notes. I think Hanani also mentioned that she likes to do flashcards. So like Kadra, about you? Do you do notes or like do you not enjoy doing them?
Okay, honestly, I wish I was the perfect note-taking type person. I've definitely tried before. It's just so hard to keep up with, man. Like, maybe you start, like I remember in Form 4, I did do notes like Tamadun, right? It's like, wow, this such nice notes about Tamadun. Chapter 2, I was like, I have nothing to write. Like, I don't have any nice notes for even chapter 2. It's just chapter 2. So, it's definitely nice if you have the time and to invest, because personally for me, note taking I can't do it very fast because I tend to immerse myself too much into content and try to get as much as I can out. And personally, that's a great way, but I just was not making the time for that. So, I just had to sit myself and I was like, "Cut, you can't do that. Like, if you don't have the time and I wasn't putting in the effort to look for time either. So I just kind of like I just had to like tone down on those notes. So for like history, what helped me was those like, what were they? I would read the textbook. I would at least go through it once. So make sure to go through it once so you just know what's going on. And then there are actually like really helpful techniques on how to read textbooks online. Something about like you read I think it was the conclusion first and then a bunch of headers. And then you kind of read the textbook. So then you already know what you're going to look for, because, if you approach it as a storybook, it's going to take longer. So yeah, I don't even remember what the question is, honestly. What was the question? What was the question? I just remember.
The question was, are you
Note
no,
taking. Yeah.
I am note taking is helpful, but if you can't do it, that's okay as well. And you don't have to force yourself to do them as well. Like, just be honest with yourself.
Same. I think
I
it takes time, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think just one thing to add, like if you're too lazy and like you think that note taking is super time consuming, I recommend like annotating your books, annotating your textbooks, and like adding little points and little stars and like little highlights so that you know
Keynotes.
focus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, annotating, guys. That's the thing.
All right, that's cool. So another question is, what is to be done now that trials is 1 month away? Maybe is doing past years question a good idea?
Yes, it is a good idea because, like I said before, when you do more sets of questions, you are exposed to various different types of way that they can ask you. So the more you do, the more exposed you are, and then in a way, the more prepared you are for the exam. So that is my advice. Do lots and lots of past year papers and also trial exams.
Thanks so much for the question, for the answer, Harif. I think that really answered the question. Another question I can see in the Q&A box right now is when we see top scorers, most of them seem to be among the top students of the classes since the start, which is quite relatable. Like, all of you guys probably are top scorers from the start. So what do you think about this? What advice do you have for those who have way more to work on? And can we know how you did in your trials if you want to share it with us?
Can I answer this question?
Go ahead.
Honestly, I didn't start out like this. In Form 1 to Form 3, I was definitely not a top scorer because I didn't really take my academics to the most seriously I could have, honestly. So, maybe I was able to understand stuff, but I was definitely not putting in the hours needed to be a top scorer type person. So I would say that I wasn't a top scorer from the beginning. I only started really being like, getting awards for exams, and that was like really new for me in Form 4. So that was like a whole new experience for me and a whole new world, just like doing well in exams, because you kind of have to realize that an exam is an exam. It's not a 100% test of your knowledge, because it takes effort, to like, you have to put in the work to get to know the exam and get smart with the questions and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't always like that. But for people who feel like they're at the bottom, was it that your description was? Um, really don't. Apa tu? Macam mana cakap? Okay. It's possible for you to get better at taking exams. You just have to remember that if you want to outsmart an exam, you have to get to know the exam. So if you want to do better at your exam, get to know the exam, because that's what we're kind of going for anyway. So one of my kind of problems, I guess, with prepping for an exam before was that I would kind of focus too much on trying to understand every single thing, and that would take too much of my time, and then I wouldn't end up doing past papers or questions. So when the time came, I look at the question and I can't really answer it because I wasn't preparing myself to look at questions. I was just like trying to absorb all this knowledge, and yeah, maybe I could apply some of that knowledge, but it's not as effective as getting to know the exam. So yeah, if you feel like you're at the bottom there, try looking back at the exam. It may sound, I don't know if that like can like trigger some type of imposter syndrome because you don't feel like you're smart enough or anything, but really it's okay to get familiar with the paper first. Maybe that is what will help you further understand what you're reading. So really don't feel insecure about how you approach exam taking.
I think that it's really inspiring how you also talked about, your phase of not really becoming a top scorer at this start. Because I think like most people, right? I think a lot of us here, we're not really, like high achievers right now. We don't feel like high achievers. I think that a lot of schools, especially since we don't have exams, we don't really have a way to, you know, test ourselves, so we don't know where we stand. So I think it's really important for like everyone to listen to your tips, listen to especially what Kadra talked about, saying how you shouldn't compare yourselves with other people. Also, it's really important to keep that in mind. We can move on to another question. Actually, it's hi, what should I do if I'm scared of the future, or like you're unsure of, your ambitions, and so it's going to affect your studies, but you don't have enough motivation because of it. Like, how would you approach that if you really don't know what you want to do in the future?
I personally don't have an ambition yet. Like I don't know what I want to be right now. So like um I personally think that it's okay to not know what you want to do and like not know what you want to do in the future and all that, because I personally don't know what I want to do in the future. So like it's okay for to not like set like a certain like goal in mind, because like that's like the future, and the future can be amended to now. So like I think it's not like necessary to like stress yourself out and like stress yourself out because you don't have a goal like other people. So yeah, it comes back to not comparing yourself with other people. So like yeah, I say that it's okay.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. And I think, SPM is already something else. You should really focus on one at a time, especially if you're unsure. Like what Hanani said, don't stress yourself out trying to figure that part out because you haven't finished your SPM and you're worrying about that, but you're also worrying about this. It's really not going to help you. It's going to be pretty counterproductive. So, focus on one thing at a time. And that was definitely something I struggled with because, during our SPM, because of its uncertainty, it kept being pushed. And then people are already starting to apply for scholarships, I remember, before SPM, right? So yeah, that was definitely something I saw and I was like, how are you guys doing that? Like, I can't even think about anything else. So yeah, it's okay to think about one thing at a time if it's really bothering you. But do know that like people are different. Some people can just like take the time out to apply for stuff like that and they can just mentally kind of split between the two. But personally for me, I had to focus on one thing at a time because or else it would just have been too much. So if you're worried about it, like how I was, then I would recommend focusing one thing at a time.
One thing at a time. That's very important. I think that, yeah, you shouldn't be focusing on, different things. That's what you said, right, Kadra? You just have to focus on one thing at a time. You should have to focus on SPM or actually trials, because I know that some schools, they're actually facing trials in like a few weeks actually. So good luck, guys. I hope that you can take the advice that our guest speakers have talked about today and ace those trials. So I think that our webinar is going to come at an end. So thank you so much to our guest speakers, Hanani, Kadra, and Harif. Wow, I'm pretty sure that after this talk, we students, we will be fired up. We're going to have so much motivation to study and work our best for trials or examinations in general. And thank you too to the audience for joining today's webinar, and good luck for your examinations. Also, if you enjoyed the content of today's talk, please do subscribe to Chumerlang's Telegram at t.me/chumerlang.org. Side note, please also do keep a look out for the feedback form for this webinar on our SPM Tips webpage at chumerlang.org/SPM Tips, because we really want to know your opinion, your feedback, and your comments on today's webinar. Hope everyone really benefited from the amazing advice given from our extraordinary guest speakers today, but also would like to let you guys know something. And this is actually a message from our abang-abang and kakak-kakak kaisers. They say that keep in mind that SPM is not the end of the world. Exams aren't the end of the world, but instead, this is the beginning of our long journey ahead, which was also something that Hanani mentioned before. So, with that in mind, looks like our webinar is at an end. That's it for tonight, and have a great day, everyone.